Hello and welcome to True Awakening. What is going on in the world? We are going to try to get a sense of what's happening, and there are some clues. Really powerful is really thinking about the president's message for us around this coronavirus, that we should stay in groups of less than 10. Now, we know things aren't adding up out there. We've got massive lockdown and control energies going on, perhaps more to come, for what seems like a relatively benign virus. And yet, tons of hype and media coverage. We know that this is clearly a bioweapon planned pandemic that has been in the works for many years by dark agendas. And yet, why is this being allowed to play out if we have the patriots in control? So this is a really interesting thing that Q on the boards has posted 7 times this concept of less than 10. And I do think that this, our president saying to us, stay in groups of less than 10 people, is a message for us that we do need to trust the plan. We do need to trust that bigger truths are coming, big things are happening behind the scenes, and that perhaps the white hats are using this global pandemic playbook that they knew was coming as a way to institute and perhaps do mass arrests, and perhaps the financial changes in the financial system, financial reset that's been talked about. And so let's explore this less than 10 concept. So on November 17th, November 2nd, 2017, Q posted, this is post number 60, and the post says, you can count the people who have the full picture on 2 hands. Of those, and then in parentheses, less than 10 people, only 3 are non-military. Why is this relevant? He asks. Game theory. And then the next is, outside of a potential operator who has been dialed in with orders, in parentheses, specific to his or her mission, nobody else has this information. Operators never divulge. Alice in Wonderland. So this is really interesting because our president continuing to say stay in groups of less than 10 people. Is this a message to the QAnon community and to the woke people who know that something big is trying to happen? And is this a step back for all of us to see the bigger purpose and the movement of this Q community to make sure that enough people know what's really going on, or have a sense, not that we know anything of what's really going on, but have a sense that there's way bigger things to this story? Now, we could be wrong, and this is a really important energy that I want to bring forward in people who are against Q, against POTUS, against the different movements, the red and blue team in our country, and within the Q movement, things that are against. It's like, we have to be in a place to be like, I was wrong, and I might not know, right? And I have to say this about the fact that looking at the last 2, you should really check out Amazing Polly's last 2 videos around the coronavirus task force. And I thought, since they were, POTUS was working with them, that these were people we could trust, but apparently he's surrounded by total swamp creatures. And so the people on the task force, like the head of the NIH, which did a lot of the research with the Bill Gates Foundation around this creating a global pandemic while saying we're trying to stop it, and the AIDS task force, which is like lots of money laundering and money never going where it was supposed to, and really about creating more disease and more destruction on our planet. And so I had to kind of step back and be like, oh, wow, that's really swampy. But then, you know what? That brought me to more truth. And this is kind of the energy of this channel. We don't, once you get to a truth, there's a bigger, wider truth also. You know, and we constantly, what we're being asked of and what Q's asking us of us is to research for ourselves, have an open mind, and be open to what we long held beliefs we thought to be true and people we thought we could trust. Not so much. You know, like, oh, Bill Gates is doing really great things for health. And it's like, you mean paralyzing people with the polio vaccine? Okay. So now, so that being said, we're looking at this, and then I was thinking about it, and it's like, well, yeah, if it's less than 10 people who really know the whole plan, besides all of us who have been given clues with the Q posts over these last few years in the QAnon community, which is like so important to hold space and makes Q all make sense right now. And now it's like, now the Q posts are finally making sense. And we'll be exploring those as we move forward on this channel, looking at the Q posts and being like, oh, that's what he was talking about, right? And so if less than 10 people know about this real military plan, like that we're really in on it, then of course this task force and a lot of the government officials, like they maybe have gotten on the team, but they're not in the inside room where it's happening, you know? And like, that's where it's really strange and surreal, because it's like we're watching a movie. And it's really interesting because the president is giving us very powerful little clues if we can pay attention. Like yesterday in the task force live stream, Pompeo was there, the head of the State Department, and when he handed it over to Pompeo for questions, he said, or as we call it, the Deep State Department. So he's like validating the deep state, and it's really interesting to watch the people behind him and their reactions, right? The swampy people that are surrounding him that are on the task force. And then when they talk about some like agenda stuff that comes through, and watching Trump's reaction, you know? And so we've got that Deep State Department, and that's a huge validation of what's really happening right now, is that we are taking down the deep state, and that Trump is on our team, and the Q movement is real. And this less than 10 is an actual, very powerful validation of the whole thing, and helping us feel safe through this. Now, we haven't heard from Q since March 9th, 2020. And yet he came on yesterday. It's a group of people, and he's just an easy way to talk about it, okay? But the post was a link to a video with inspiring music, and the post is "Do not fear," period, Q. So we are being told to sit tight, keep our eyes on the ball, and trust the plan, and lend our energetic and spiritual energy of support towards the light of truth, the divine plan, the divine timeline, the spiritual ascension that's trying to happen, which means a whole bunch of truth needs to come forward. And is this global pandemic an opportunity to completely reveal all levels of corruption? And there's an interesting thing going on with this. If we look at post 1851 from Q, he says, these people are sick. Now, that was in reference to exposure of pedophilia in Hollywood, in the Jeffrey Epstein situation. And it's like a lot of the world says, oh, well, that was just Jeffrey Epstein. That was just one guy, you know, who was maybe a pedophile or had a sex ring or whatever. And it's like, no. We're talking about all of Hollywood and half of Washington, you know, and the global elite, the rulers of, you know, the royal elite in Europe. And this has been going on for a very long time. And we're trying to wrestle back, except for that these people have control energies in all of the governments throughout the world. And it's like been a huge process, but really started back when JFK was assassinated, because JFK talked about splitting the CIA into 1,000 pieces, and then he was assassinated, and nobody has demanded the truth around that. And we were supposed to get the unredacted JFK documents 2 years ago, and so this is kind of where this whole movement started, of this Q movement, because it's very interesting that his gravesite from above is shaped like a Q. And so wow, 67 years. And of course, the battle's gone on before that with the 100 years ago with the Federal Reserve and stealing the ownership of our government and raping and stealing from us ever since in the guise of helping people. Like say with this, what Amazing Paul, these videos were talking about, this AIDS Foundation, the AIDS Task Force, and all of this money going in and never making it into helping people, and it's really about keeping people disempowered and keeping people sick. So 1851 post, these people are sick. Now this is interesting because it's referring to pedophilia. And then he says, referring to those people, you people are a disease. Now this is interesting because is he talking about this time? And this, what they knew was coming in this global pandemic agenda. Because apparently, COVID-19 is actually, it's not the virus. The virus itself comes from the SARS virus. And so the reaction in the body is a disease. And that's what COVID-19 is about. So you people are a disease. We, the people, are the cure. And that's like where we look back to these posts and we can see the dots starting to connect, and we can see the hope and encouragement and the power of the digital soldiers, the awareness, our spiritual awareness, our using our consciousness and our holding our energy for the light and what's coming, and holding space for what's the bigger truths and the bigger reveal, and praying for us to be freed from this global control. And so a lot is kind of coming together into all of these pieces right now. And so one of the things that's interesting is that it does seem that what was coming forward, this was brought forward, and I was watching Dave the X22 report yesterday, and he was bringing something really interesting to the foreground about how there has been a shift in the algorithms on Google that was suppressing a lot of the information of these truths, from coming up in searches. And one of the things had to do with Rachel Chandler. And Rachel Chandler is a child handler who worked for Epstein and the whole global pedophile ring, all connected into that. And her pictures and images of her with all these important people wouldn't come up in searches, and weren't it was really hard to find them on the internet, but this is where the power of the digital soldiers come in, is posting these things on the boards and getting the information out to all of us. And so now, in post 3136, Q says, watch the news for Rachel Chandler. And now we're seeing like, oh, Rachel Chandler's coming up in searches with Epstein and with the Clintons and with, very powerful people and Prince Andrew. And so are we at the edge of this massive disclosure of these truths? Is that what's really going on? And so we'll just explore this. I think it's interesting. One of the things that Q says has been posted is that here comes the pain, and to me, we all thought, I think, that the pain meant these horrible, evil people who have been stealing children and doing the satanic pedophile things and horrible things, perpetrating 9/11 and funding ISIS and stealing billions of dollars from us, and that those people being arrested and finally but I'm that's the pain they're talking about, that the pain is coming to these evil people and forces. And you know what, I don't know if that's really what he means, because first of all, I'm not sure these guys are even human and can feel pain, Or do we have like clones or alien, who knows what? Like, if they're able to perpetrate this level of evil, do they even feel pain? And there's lots of people who are caught up. Part of the Epstein thing is that he had all these famous people and politicians come to his island, and all the rooms had cameras in them. And so it was like basically setting up blackmail to keep them from, to control politics through blackmail, And that was Epstein's role for the US, for the CIA, as well as for Mossad, the Israeli intelligence organization. And so there are people who have been framed and controlled, and actual humans that might want to get out of the trap of this, that they're just their hands are tied, their family's been threatened, and there's blackmail material, and maybe they're actually human and could feel pain. But the pain I think he's talking about, and I'll do a video more on this too, but it's like the pain is us having to wake up to these truths, that these people we trusted, there's all kinds of atrocities that happened in Obama's, when he was president. And we think of him as this great guy everybody loves. And it's not going to feel good to realize, it's like being in a narcissist relationship and you wake up to realize that this person has been just manipulating you and controlling you, and, is a person you thought you could trust the most and love, and who actually loved you. And it was actually like you were just food for their dark, black agenda, And it's like when you wake up to that, you feel sick. And is this the sickness we're really dealing with, of like facing the truth of these lies? And it's like, the more you're out there researching, this information is out there. There's actual real proof of these things out there. And yet people don't want to see it, and of course our mainstream media is never going to show us anything because they're like fully on board with the globalist control and the cabal and the deep state, and pretty much a propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. I mean, it's both sides of the aisle. It's not red and blue. That's the thing. Q's here to unite us, even though it seems like it's a right-wing thing. But definitely there's, the media does seem to be a propaganda arm of the left side of government at this time, and now aligned with the Communist Party in China and the globalists. So it's, things are coming to the surface every day, like the insider trading that was happening by the senators that heard about the virus and went and sold all their stocks. It's like, come on, you guys, how is this able to go on? Right? Like, are we going to just roll over and take this? But until the people get the truth and come out of the brainwashing and the mind control that's happening with the technological energies and whatever's been in chemtrails for all these years, and that's where we come in. We've got to hold space for the truth and hold space for the light and be the digital soldiers we are, and start to talk to people about the truths as they come out. And we're here to help calm people down and make them feel better, even if it's just energetically, if we can't talk to people about it yet. And one of the other things, so here comes the pain. I think it's about humanity having to face, and America having to face, the regular everyday Americans having to face the lies and these really horrible things. And it's kind of like, okay, using directed energy weapons to create earthquake in Haiti so that you can get a bunch of aid money that never goes to Haiti and steal children for satanic pedophile ritual. We can probably unite against that. We're like, red and blue doesn't matter. It's like, we've got a common enemy now. And actually this whole COVID-19 is exactly that. It's like, really, there's global energies that want to release a bioweapon and kill 90% of the population, and we let these people steal our money and use it for these purposes. And it's just not pretty to look at, and yet the information is coming out, and we have to have more truth, because if we don't, and things say the white hats succeed and we move on and things get better, we'll just create the same scenario again until we really know the truth. And we have to face these hard, sickening truths. And that's where the Q community needs to have patience and compassion for those who are waking up right now, even though you've been totally bashed by media and everybody around you. You can't talk about your beliefs because, if you support Trump, you're a racist and homogenous and everything else, white supremacist, and those are just lies we've been fed by the media once again. But we do need to be compassionate, because we've had 2 years or 20 years to open up to these truths and get comfortable with them and face them. And now people are going to have to do that in just a couple of weeks or months. And that's a very dramatic and painful experience. And I think that's what Q's talking about with Here Comes the Pain. But it's time, it's time. And those of us who have known these truths and are praying every night, that's one thing Q's posted, like, those who know the truth can't sleep. It's like fighting to stop what's happening to our children. And it's like, it's got to stop. We cannot, we've got to make these changes, and therefore the truth must come forward. And it's ugly. And so I think that's a pain. Now, the other thing that's interesting, I've been wondering about, as because I'm compiling information and thinking through things. This is what Q wants us to do. Question, think for ourselves, do our own research. And then I'm a professional intuitive, so just opening up to intuitive perspectives. And one of the things that Q posted a few times is they won't be able to walk the streets. And this is like the pedophiles and the people who propagated these horrible things and stole all our money and did horrible things with them, while acting like they're on high moral ground, right? Like the Pope. And so it says they won't be able to walk the streets. And it's like, is this part of the lockdown? Like the agenda the white hats want to use the lockdown for, allowing this to go so far, because this fake pandemic, because it's like, first of all, we've got to expose the globalist scheme and, these plans and these truths, and they've got to come out to the public. And this is a great way to do it, very fast. But also, if they do move forward, this mass arrests and more truth come out about the pedophilia and stuff. And it's just like that, this energy of like, they won't be able to walk the streets. Like, people might be so angry, and the lockdown is really about subduing civil unrest because of the anger that people will feel when they find out about these lies. Like, say that Bill Gates was behind releasing this bioweapon very deliberately, and so it's an interesting concept, and we'll just continue to explore these things. I just wanted to be here with a little update of putting together the dots so that we can hold space for the bigger, more positive changes that are happening in this true awakening. So I look forward to seeing you soon on the next update.